Alright guys, so right now I agree with a lot of you. It certainly feels as though Horikoshi is speedrunning to the end of My Hero Academia, and fair enough, I mean this series came out in 2014. To still be going strong with it in such a capacity, despite being expected of a mangaka at this point, is still an incredible feat. With that being said, we still of course have quite a ways to go before everything has wrapped up, and along the way, we are bound to have many of our burning questions finally answered. And most recently, the question of the UA trader's identity has been revealed to us. A rather sudden turn of events which, beyond simply who it ended up actually being, I don't imagine anyone expected us to see this immediately after Shigaraki's battle against Star and Stripe. But yeah, Oyama is in fact the UA trader, a role he doesn't enjoy at all. One that comes along with an immense sense of guilt, which he only managed to power through on account of his desire to protect his parents. To fail or resign from his position would be to effectively kill them, as All For One is not a man to be crossed. And at this point, it's hard not to recognize his ability to do so, considering he was able to send them instructions despite them being within the UA barrier. Not only that, but once Lady Nagano resigned from her particular task, well, she blew up violently. A sort of remote detonation quirk which may or may not still be available to Shigaraki considering his run-in with Star, but there's no reason the original All For One wouldn't have it regardless. Now, the reason the Oyama family is even in this mess is because they wanted their son to be happy. In this superpowered world of quirks, to be quirkless is a very challenging reality. And this is something we know from DEKU'S life prior to One For All. And it's only made worse in the case of those who aspire to become heroes. Being born quirkless is essentially a medical condition in the world of My Hero Academia, and similarly to the real world, many parents would hope to lessen the adversities their children may face if they had the option to do so. I truly don't believe this family approached All For One for the sake of their boy, but rather that the potential for their son to have a quirk was proposed and they ultimately took the opportunity, and did so after conferring with a young Yuga that this was what he actually wanted. Yet they truly did not know all that this would entail, as if they did, they wouldn't have done it to begin with. If we take a look back to DEKU'S quirkless experience, he was diagnosed to be as such by none other than the nefarious Dr. Garaki, the scientist behind the quirk singularity doomsday theory and the Nomu experiments. Now, the doctor was also the founder of Jaku General Hospital, which he served in as not only chairman of the board, but also as a pediatrician. He additionally invested in various charitable endeavors, such as the establishment of various orphanages and nursing homes nationwide. Now, something to keep in mind is that with him being All For One's most trusted pawn, we would honestly be remiss not to presume each and every one of the doctor's toilings to not be for All For One's sake. And at that, the preparations of All For One span several decades, and so there is no reason to believe that this would be any different. It is my belief that in the case of Oyama, his parents were presented with the prospect of perhaps an experimental procedure which would, in theory, provide their boy with a quirk. Now, why do I believe they went to the doctor as opposed to his master All For One? Well, they seem to be oblivious to the whole nefarious aspect of this. Not only that, but the doctor's particular field of expertise was within the realm of quirk-based medicine. In the event that a parent were to be concerned about their child's quirk development or lack thereof, he would be the specialist to contact, which would explain why despite residing in Musutafu City, Deku and his mother ventured to Jaku City for his diagnosis. Which isn't to say that this is the only option, however, as despite also residing in Musutafu City, when Toya's quirk was causing complications, Endeavor and Rei ventured to Central Hospital for his diagnosis. Although one may argue that Toya differs in the sense that he was not quirkless. Not to mention that had Dr. Garaki been Toya's pediatrician, there would ultimately be a point of recognition for both Dabi and Endeavor, which would in a sense be narratively compromising. Regardless, this would seem to be the most plausible sequence of events. The sheer volume of the doctor's collection of quirks was staggering, what most definitely took years upon years of meticulous cultivation and experimentation. Yet even still, prior to just a few months ago, he'd gone entirely undetected, which again points us towards his supposed charitable dabblings. Orphan children are less likely to have a protectorate and may therefore be exploited by the nefarious, with a similar sort of possibility in the case of retirement homes with the twisted bonus of killing them without suspicion. What effectively stood to provide All For One a catalog of both new and old quirks, this being the supply, while desperate parents may be considered potential buyers, or as All For One would put it, friends to be. And so with all this being the case, I would like us to yet again revisit the situation of Deku. I mean, all things considered, he had everything necessary to be presented with such a prospect as well. Yet why is it that he didn't get a quirk like Oyama did? I mean, if at the time he were to be asked like Oyama was, there is no doubt that he would be jumping at the opportunity all the same. And so I'm led to believe that his mother probably refused. Inko knew how desperately Deku wanted to be a hero, sure, but when it comes to things like experimental procedures, success is not guaranteed. Complications are entirely possible. And it's not so unreasonable for a parent to refuse such a thing, especially if their kid would be perfectly fine otherwise. I mean, the whole point of proposing such a thing would be to prey upon the desperation of others. This is where the bestowal of all for one especially thrives. But truly, in our world, people hardly ever actually assume the occupations they desired when they were 5 as adults, as otherwise I would be in space communicating with aliens right about now. Furthermore, with how restricted quirk usage is, unless you're a hero, there's not much of a difference. Sure, it may lead to social inequity for children, but there's plenty more life to be lived beyond that. I mean, civilians don't even use their quirks for self-defense in this world. But yeah, if this were to be the case, then I feel like Inkos' profuse apology to Deku may now hold even more weight. And this could also be proper reasoning as to why we were alluded to the doctor with Deku's first hospital visit. And let me just get this off my chest right now, please. I do not want to see any more Deku's original quirk was decay or his quirk was taken by All For One. Or please keep those theories away from me. We've been getting the same theories for years and years and years. It doesn't stop. I just can't. That's like probably my least favorite theory ever. I hope that it's confirmed just so I never have to hear it again, or it is just deconfirmed so I never have to hear it again. It is the worst. But anyways, Oyama has apparently been working for All For One even before entering UA. And I have to wonder, what sort of missions could he have been given? And hell, what is his intended objective currently? Thanks to the search quirk, it's safe to presume that All For One is aware of this discovery, but I wouldn't be surprised if he were to have already factored the possibility in and is still able to use this to his advantage. But now, before we close things out, I want to talk specifically about naval laser. I mean, guys, we have seen All For One lead to the decimation of whole cities and the subjugation of Japan, but if nothing else, this has to be the most diabolical thing he has ever done. This no-good thumb monster with dental veneers really had this entire family sell their souls in exchange for a quirk that lets you shoot lasers from your belly button. You have got to be kidding me, because as if that was not cruel enough, the damn thing is faulty. If Oyama uses it for too long, which is more than a second continuously, he begins to make a mess in his pants, and it is perpetually leaky. So much so that my boy Yuga has bound his belly button to a chastity belt for the last decade. Are you kidding me? Like, okay, maybe the complications are an account of the quirk not being natural to his body, but by now there is no reason he shouldn't be acclimated to the power, especially considering his training at UA. Deku too was born quirkless and bestowed the mighty power of One For All, which at this point he has almost entirely mastered, and that is a bundle deal. Yuga got the bottom of the bargain bin and still can't get it to work. Deku has had a year or so with the core power and mastered most of the inner powers over the span of a few months at most. And if we're also to consider our theory that All For One gave Shigaraki the decay quirk as a child, Yuga has even less of an excuse. I mean, it is so bad that the kid had to name himself Can't Stop Twinkling, because he literally can't stop his twinkle tinkle. This is just cruel, and you know what else is cruel? Enjoying the content and not subscribing to Plot Armor with notifications on. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.